the screen. Okay, so welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar, for this workshop actually. And so, as you know, we are here today to discuss kind of how to run community events and services online, because as you all know, with this pandemic, we all had to adapt and kind of make sure that we could run our services still via online platforms and also a lot via the phone. And so this can be both an opportunity and a challenge, as we all know. And kind of after discussing some of the implications of the situation, for our work to support our communities in our previous webinars that some of you may have attended already. Today we have a bit more of an interactive workshop to be able to discuss online platforms specifically and how to overcome the current challenges. So the workshop will cover a couple of topics specifically. So first, IT and online platforms. So what should we be aware of in terms of running services and events for communities, so external to our organizations. And on a second level, kind of how to support community members with technical or online internet issues remotely. So without seeing them, that's obviously kind of a big challenge. So today you're going to hear from two of my colleagues at Bromley Bible Center. So first, Rodrigo Fernandez is our information system coordinator, and he'll be kind of talking to you about some basic things to know about online platforms for clients, as well as giving some tips of things that we need to be aware of and any kind of useful resources. So he's been helping us a lot at Bromley Bible Center to kind of figure out this whole thing since the beginning of lockdown. So he'll be giving you the same kind of advice today during his presentation. Then we have, sorry, my notes are being a little bit slow. She's the digital and financial inclusion trainer at Bromley Bible Center. She'll be talking to us about the Get Up to Speed project and how her and her team have been supporting people with getting online before the lockdown and now. So after this presentation, you will have some time to ask our speakers some questions. I know most of you have already kind of indicated either questions or what they were expecting from the workshop today in the registration form. So thank you so much for doing this. If you have any other questions, please let us know in the chat box. We'll be kind of looking at the questions and at the chats that are on there. But first of all, I would like to start a quick poll to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So know maybe where you're from, kind of where you work, but also there's a tiny question about, are you already running events online? Maybe you are, maybe not yet. And also what you think your kind of IT capacities are, because we're also part of the community at the end of the day, and maybe we're not very tech savvy either, but we still need to help our community members, so that can be a struggle as well. So I'll just launch the poll right now, and if you can just answer, it's very quick, it's just 4 little questions, so you can just answer that, and then we'll have a look together at the answers. I think you should be able to see the poll now on your screen. Right, I see people have started voting, that's great. And don't hesitate to say hi in the chat box as well, introduce yourselves. It's not that many of us today because we're in a workshop that's a little bit more interactive. So we can just have a nice chat and start asking questions, start exchanging some tips on what we've been doing. That can be a nice way to get to know each other. I'll give you 1 more minute to vote. I think almost everybody has voted. I think also someone's not on mute, so I can hear some background noise. Just make sure that you're all on mute. Okay, just a few seconds more. And then we can share that. All right, so okay, so I can show you all kind of the results, so you should be able to see. So, okay, most people work in a voluntary community organization, so that's interesting. And a lot of people in London. Okay, about half, a little bit less than half of the people are currently delivering online services, but I see not everyone, so that's interesting. We can talk about that as well. And some people are not at all tech savvy, and most of us I see can do basic things. So that's interesting. That's good to know for the rest of the session. And I see one question in the chat, someone asking which program to vote, and that's actually an interesting question for everybody. That's just part of Zoom actually. So Zoom can allow you to do some polls and share some things like that. So that's something that's included within the Zoom program actually. All right, so let's get on with the presentation. So first of all, Rodrigo is going to, sorry, I'm just gonna put the slides up properly. Rodrigo is gonna show us, explain to us a little bit about online platforms and some kind of the basic things to be aware of. If I can get my slides to change, we can get started, and I will unmute you, Rodrigo. I think I need to do it myself. And hi, Rodrigo. I think the slides are being very slow, so maybe if you can start with that, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll get them up.
All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me, and thank you for the intro, Bernice. I'm Rodrigo. I'm the Information System Coordinator and Data Protection Officer at the Bromley Bible Center. I've been at the center for around 5 years now in various different roles, and I've been in my current roles for about 3 years now. I'm going to try and talk about the most important things from an organizational perspective. And hopefully a lot of the questions are going to be user-based and issues that you might have with your clients and your service users, which then we can answer. But since these sorts of things are it's going to differ a lot from organization to organization, I'm going to try to keep it a bit general. So hopefully it's helpful for everyone. I'm not sure if you can see the slides. I cannot at all now.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just, they'll be back up in a second.
Okay.
Go on.
So I'm gonna talk first about compliance, then quickly about the difference between paid and free services, then something around security versus convenience, and then just general system integration. So since the slides are not, seems like they're coming back now. So starting off with compliance, and this is probably going to be most important for people that work in the charity sector, since oftentimes we're working with dozens of different contracts with different funders that will have completely different requirements. So it's quite important that you as an organization protect yourself and make sure that whatever it is that you're using is compliant with all the contracts that you have and just with the regulations that you have to follow, which after the implementation of the Data Protection Act 2018 on the back of GDPR became much more, not so much complicated, but much more, what's the best word to describe it? Maybe complicated is the best way to describe it. There's a lot more things that you have to be careful comparing to 3-4 years ago. So compliance is always going to be a very important thing to keep in mind. There's some general things that you should be aware of, and this applies to whatever platform you're using. If it's a database, if it's a video call platform like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, if it's a storage solution, it applies for everything, which is where are the data centers located. That is going to be very important, especially in the future, since we don't know exactly what's going to happen in 2021, but assuming that the UK is no longer going to be part of the European Union, you're going to have to pay attention to where your data is being stored. Currently, most organizations still have their data centers scattered across the EU. There's some exceptions. Some companies are already starting to move their services to the UK for UK clients, but it's quite important to make sure that you are compliant right now and that you're going to be in the future. Most of the times, companies will be quite straightforward to the location of their data centers. But that's the first step you always have to check, is where is your data going to be? Because all of these platforms will involve movement of data, and you need to know where your data is going. Then, of course, there's the contractual requirements. This is going to depend a lot from contract to contract, from funder to funder. Some funders are a lot more flexible with their requirements. Others are quite specific. So you have to make sure that you're complying with all of them, and you are actually, that you fully understand what they mean and that you are able to meet them. And attached to that is the level of data that each platform processes. So every single one of these platforms will process data on your behalf, and that ties up with the two previous points. If they're going to be processing data for you, you need to make sure that that processing activity is lawful. And again, connected to that is how do they process it? These can be a bit tricky. Some providers will be quite straightforward and clear with how they do it. For example, if you sign up with a Microsoft service on a business level, they will send you a data processing agreement to sign, which is going to highlight all of these steps, but that varies a lot from company to company. And then when it comes to requirements, another key thing to look for any platform you're going to be using is data encryption. Do they offer data encryption? Is all of the data encrypted? What is the level of encryption that they use? All of that, especially if you're working with clients and discussing personal data, especially if it's protected data, you have to really you need to know what is the level of encryption, because since all of these services are based on the cloud, you really cannot afford to have confidential data moving around different data centers without being encrypted. So that is going to be a key consideration for any platform that you use, based on the level of data that you're going to be moving on that platform. And then to tie all of that together, it's the internal part. What controls does your organization have? What policies and procedures? So all of that is going to have to be built based on the previous points. You need to have the internal controls to be able to, as the time progresses, to check if that platform, if that service is still meeting those controls. The controls have to be built based on what your funders require, what you as an organization require, and what the law requires. And the same applies to policies and procedures. So really, for all the platforms that you use, doesn't matter what is the actual end use of the platform, you need to go through this stage and make sure that everything falls into the right spaces and that you're not creating trouble for you in the future. So moving on to the next one, which eventually, there we go. So this is a fairly straightforward one, especially now since the lockdown started.
I'm not sure if this is on my side or Rodrigo, but I can't hear. Ah, you've been muted. I don't know why. Let me unmute you. Not sure why we lost you.
There we go.
All right.
Where was I? Yeah, so basically since the start, this has been a problem for a very long time, but it's more of a problem for organizations since the start of the lockdown. You're going to have a lot of organizations that suddenly had to move into online solutions that they didn't have before. So it's very tempting to go with free solutions. There's several different issues when going with free accounts, and this applies even for, let's say something like Zoom. Using a free account on Zoom is completely different than using a business account on Zoom, because unless you're talking about something that's open source, that's out there, everyone can use, you can then develop it further to meet your needs. There's no such thing as a free service. And the danger of these free platforms on our area of business is that they will get their money out of something else. If you're not directly paying them to use their service, they're going to be most of the times using your data. Then there's the issue that a lot of times there's no real way of knowing exactly what data do they use and how they use it. That can be a problem for you as representing an organization, just from a business perspective and also from your service users perspective, because you just don't know what's going to happen with the data that's transferred across those systems. So always be wary of these free services. A lot of times they're fine, but unless you can be sure that they're fine, you shouldn't really be using free services for anything that involves any transfer of personal data. Then there's some worse situations that can happen, like data mining. A lot of companies would gather the data, the raw data that they collect from their users. Then that data can be sold on to another organization, which will then mine the data to get some useful information out of that. Most of the times, that's how you end up having your email on some weird newsletters that you've never heard of. And other times, that information can be used for more nefarious reasons. So again, very important if you're working with your clients online and if you're having conversations that involve personal businesses or anything that might be confidential or might cause damage to the client or to the organization if the information leaves that space. Then on the basic level, advertising, which they're going to use your data for that. And in the worst case scenario is malware. It's very easy to install wrong versions of the software. For example, if you go and just say you want to download the platform X and you go on Google and you download it, it's very easy to download the wrong version and download a version of the software that has malware installed into it. And a lot of times you're going to install the platform, it's going to work just fine, you're not going to notice any difference. And this is especially important in the current times because the opportunities there for the people that want to do this, because they know that a big portion of the world is looking for these things and downloading different pieces of software. So it's very easy. And whilst it's not as dangerous to you as a member of an organization, for your client, it can be a lot more dangerous, especially if the client is not as digital savvy as you are or as you would open to be. It's very easy to just download the wrong thing and download something that will do things that you wouldn't want it to do. So always be wary of free services generally. And as a rule of thumb, if you're going to download whatever it is, just make sure you're on the right website, you're on the company's website. don't download it from anywhere else. Then the next one, security versus convenience. This is a tricky one, and it's directly related and connected to compliance. And this is not a 100% fact, but developing security into any piece of software is more expensive. It takes longer. So it's always going to be more expensive. The level of security in most situations will affect the price. That's why a lot of times prices vary a lot, not just because of security, but that plays a big part in it. And then the issue is the more levels of security you put into a system, in a lot of times the less easy to use it becomes, even if it's just on a perceived level and not on a necessary factual level. But that is a thing. The more security is, maybe the more steps you have to follow. For example, if you want to use multi-factor authentication, that is more secure than a password, but it also adds another step to the end user. So it is the downside of security, but again, if you're using a platform to transfer private and confidential data, you're going to have to choose security over convenience. What else? So, and another thing to keep in mind is that a lot of platforms will pick convenience over security, especially in situations where they know there is a big market waiting for something that just works. So you have to keep that in mind. That's why it's important to just don't choose one platform and then this is the platform you use for everything. Make sure that the platform uses for each case scenario. And in order to do that, you need to assess each activity. Similar to if you have to do, let's say, a data protection impact analysis, you need to do a similar process when you're choosing an online platform. Another thing to keep in mind is that we've seen this a lot, especially in smaller business, is people using personal solutions for business activities. So in a lot of platforms, you're going to have your free accounts or your single user accounts and then your business accounts. There is a difference in most situations. A personal account is not going to have the same level of security a business account have. For example, Zoom is a good example. If you have the free account of Zoom, you have very basic admin settings, whilst if you have a business account, it gives you a whole different set of options because it is built to serve a business. So it's very important to know the difference between the two and to be careful not to use, in most situations, personally used solutions. And then at the end, it's understanding ownership. In a lot of these platforms, you don't own anything, you're just paying for a service. So they are going to be providing the service to you. So they're going to be the ones setting the condition, and you need to understand that, and you need to go into these platforms knowing that you're just paying to use their service. It's not yours. So the processing activities are not necessarily yours. How the platform works, it's not up to you. So you need to keep that in mind. Next slide. And then this is more of a niche situation, but if your organization, let's say the strategic plan in the long term is to integrate data systems, and that includes online platforms. Let's say the platform that you use to have video calls with your clients or workshops or whatever it is you want to integrate that with other data systems you already have. You need to be wary of what you often see as offered integration. Most of solutions, they will say they offer integration with X, Y, and Z, or just say offered integration, but a lot of times it's not as simple as that. A lot of times they use third-party integration tools that are not even developed by the company that owns the product. So you're introducing another entity to that situation. And a lot of times they say it's going to be an easy process. Most of the times it's really not. And then it's just keeping in mind, if you do have that plan, you need to make decisions knowing that you're going to want to integrate it in the long term. So let's say you're going with the same product for your document storage and for your email account, and then you choose a completely different product for your video calling. That might not be the best decision in the long term if you want to integrate them. And then another general thing to be wary is the plugins. Especially now, there's a lot of plugins for everything. Plugins for your web browser, for Outlook, OneDrive, Zoom, whatever. Just be careful with those things as well, because the same way as the third-party integrators, you're going to need to give them access to do whatever they're meant to do. So don't rely too much on these external plugins. And that is my part. And then my last slide is just something that I sometimes say at the center, because these concepts are a lot of times not that easy to follow, especially when it involves a lot of complicated aspects. So it's really down to these. When you're working online, you either decide to protect yourself and protect your data and protect your identity, or you don't. And if you don't, it's just the same as leaving your door unlocked. Anyone can come in, everyone can go in and out, take whatever they want. Maybe they won't, maybe they will, but that's how it works. If you're not protected online, you're just leaving that door open. And that is even more important when we're not talking just about you as a business, but the clients and the people that you work with. And that is my part. So I'm not sure. I think we're going to have a Q&A afterwards.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. It's very, very interesting, and yeah, that's particularly helpful, I hope, to people. I think I learned some things today, so that's good. So all right, so now we'll have Sharifa give her presentation, and then we can have Q&A after her presentation with the two of you before we go into role play. So Sharifa, I think you should be able to unmute yourself, but if you cannot.
I'm here, thank you. Hi
Awesome.
everyone. Hello everyone, I'm Sharifa. I work at the Bromley Bible Centre for the digital and financial capability team. I'm going to talk about a project that started at the end of last year, which is called Up to Speed. Bernice is controlling my PowerPoint, so I'll just say next for the next slide, yeah? Next, please. It's probably a little bit slow. So we have a team that does financial capability work with the local community, and we have 3 different projects. So the top one that I work on is called Up to Speed. Then we have another one which is called the EDF Trust Money Milestone Project, which is a financial capability project that delivers money management workshops to the community. We have the MoneyWise project, which works with the local housing provider, which is called East End Homes. And then we have the Up to Speed project, which is a new project that takes in account to money management on a digital platform. So it's integrating digital inclusion as well as financial capability. And we do this in a cohort of 4 workshops, and we also offer one-to-one support. Next slide, please. So Up to Speed project, what do we do? It's a digital inclusion project which incorporates financial capability. What we're trying to do is integrate fun ways of learning about money management, and also about learning how to do that on a digital platform. And we do this through various apps and websites as well. And the idea is that we're trying to connect people, whether they want to do online banking or whether they want to just do shopping online. So we try and help them and make them more comfortable to do that themselves. So before the lockdown started, it was designed as a 4-part workshop, which gets delivered in a 2-hour session. And we also offer a one-to-one support. So we really tailor the kind of support our clients need, whether it's comparison or changing suppliers, whatever it is they need. And the idea, we do this privately, so they get privacy, so they can have those more kind of personal conversations with us without having to disclose it in a workshop. our participants would either have access to a computer or a tablet. So if we're going into a school and we're given a computer room, that's great. If not, we travel with tablets and our own dongles. So our clients get to use a tablet and internet if they don't have a smartphone with them. And the kind of topics that we cover are online safety, and that's a theme that carries through every single workshop. We ensure that online safety is our first priority for our users. Then we look at navigating universal credits. Not a lot of people would be on this, but they're still curious to know a lot about universal credit. They may have a friend, or they may have a family member who is on universal credit and would be able to support them. We look at different apps that can help save people money, and we also use online budgeting tools, whether it's a website or an app. And the one-to-one support we do is more tailored to the client's need, and the whole perspective is to keep people connected. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'm not sure if it's come through. Oh, here we go. So we're looking at what's changed since the lockdown. Well, we're still here and we still support our clients. Our telephone number is on the website, so clients can call us directly. We get a lot of referrals from different organizations and also different services within the Bromley Bible Centre. So we're no longer offering face-to-face advice anymore, but we're looking at how we can support our more vulnerable clients in the near future, thinking about our safety precautions we've got to take. So our most vulnerable clients are supported through different referral systems, whether it's through social prescribing or other different family groups at the Bromley Bible Centre. Majority of our referrals come from the welfare team, where people have been put on universal credit but now need the support to actually manage their own account. We also provide, our workshops have changed. They're no longer 2-hour sessions for 4 times. What we are doing now is we do digital fit sessions, and we deliver them over WhatsApp, Zoom, and Microsoft Teams. And we're trying to keep it to a very small number of platforms that we think our clients will be more comfortable with. And we'll go over some of the safety features on WhatsApp in a moment. So we have we also ran a live session on Facebook. It was done to a closed group, so it's to families who are in the Facebook family playroom. And the idea is we're doing this workshop with parents and children to, start talking about money, as it's quite important factor at the moment. A lot of the inquiries have increased because obviously with the situation of COVID-19, a lot of people are either not in work at the moment or have been put on furlough. So they're needing to look at what benefits they can claim. We're still supporting our community, but the difference is our funders have been amazing. They've been really flexible about how we deliver and what the targets should look like. They want us to be able to focus on the client's need and really give the support that is actually needed right now, rather than what the budget looks like. And a lot of our clients suffer from social isolation anyway, so the community centre was a place of friendship for them. They no longer have that in place. So what we do, we make kind of like fortnightly calls to our clients, making sure they're okay and seeing if there's any help that we can provide them, so we can make referrals to the appropriate services. If you look at that picture on the right hand side, that's me doing my WhatsApp video conference with 2 of our volunteers. So it's possible to do it to people who are very techie savvy, and also people who have the basic skills to use a smartphone. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so we're looking at what are the challenges. Well, at the moment, with lockdown being in place, a lot of people's mental health and well-being has definitely been affected. A lot of stress, a lot of worries, financial concerns, what's happening with the children's school, what's happening with the work. So there's a lot of factors that play into this, and one of the things that being stuck at home where you're not getting meeting friends and family also plays on this. When your mental health has been previously affected, that maybe going to a community center to join a club or socialize with friends is no longer there. It's definitely been very difficult for a lot of our clients to adapt to. Financial stresses has also increased because a lot of people's incomes have reduced. A lot of people who are on furlough, the income is no longer, it wasn't covering their household expenditure as well. And it's something that's to bear in mind. When everybody is at home, there's a lot more electricity being used. So there's a lot of work and food being eaten. So there's a lot of concern about the cost of living at the moment as well. Universal credit. So we talk about people having to apply for universal credit more than ever before. So it's something they've probably done for the first time. And, you know, we have a welfare advice team that helps to submit applications, but having to navigate universal credit yourself is, for the first time for people, has been very challenging. So we able to support people manage their own account, and I have a few case studies to share with you at the end as well. Family commitment and lack of space, that's another concern. So with people having children at home, the priority of sharing devices has to be you know, considered. The children have schoolwork, so they'll be doing the homework or accessing the internet for that. You may have family members who are working from home, so the priority of working from home is given to the people. So running workshops with individuals sometimes can be quite difficult. And the lack of space, you may consider, you know, you just need a chair and sit down. But what it is that a lot of community in Tower Hamlets live in very large families, like 2 or 3 generations in one household. So trying to get away and get some peace and quiet to participate in a workshop is really difficult for a lot of people. And one of the biggest issues that we've come across is access to digital devices and data for that very reason. It also means that people have data on the phone, so they don't have the data capacity to join in conference calls or to be online all the time. The lack of confidence means they are not willing to join any Zoom calls or anything like that. And what we're trying to do, we engage with phone calls at first. Initially, we talk about concerns and try to support them into doing what they need to have to stay connected. We as a team, we've been working very flexibly to support the community. We're not being rigid to this is a timetable and this is what we must do. We're trying to be supportive as where possible and kind of give them what they need as a priority rather than what the project is laid out. Can I have the next slide, please? I'm aware that comments are coming in, so I'll address them afterwards, if that's okay. Okay, so you might think, how is Up to Speed helping people and changing lives? So I've got a few pointers at the top. So I have 4 different clients to share stories with. I have one gentleman who is very concerned about getting hacked onto his phone or losing his phone, and his online banking app is hacked into and someone accesses his bank. So he was able to get a security device from his bank, but he needed help to get online. So I was able to call him first of all and talk him through how he goes about using the internet and going online, how to put in safety procedures as well. And what was very helpful is that while he was using his computer, those things he wasn't aware of, what the features online meant, how to put the volume up, how to make the screen bigger. So I was able to give him other support as well. Online shopping, I have a client who was shielding and had her neighbors doing the shopping for her, and she was absolutely grateful for that. But it meant that she didn't get the choice, and often the shopping was out of budget. So I supported her to start doing online shopping, so she's able to kind of make the decisions for herself and have that delivered to her home. And that's been a life-changing factor for her, because it means that she is in control of what is coming in, and she's able to control her budget. I had a client who wanted to be able to communicate with her children while they were in isolation. She didn't know how to reply to messages on WhatsApp, and English wasn't her first language. So what I was able to do is show her how to use the voice memo features to send voice messages to her children, how to use the auto type feature. So if she said a few words, it will automatically type it for her. And after doing a WhatsApp video call to each other, we were practicing offline, and by the end of the session she got the hang of it, and now she sends me lots of voice notes saying she's doing great, and she's able to communicate with her family. So that's really empowered her to stay connected. And I had a gentleman who joined Universal Credit for the first time. He was getting text messages that there was things that he had to do in his account, but he was not aware about how to go into his account. So we did a WhatsApp video call where I was able to guide him through and show him the different features. And the best thing that came out of this is now he's really confident in managing his own account, and is able to communicate with the work coaches directly. Do I have one more slide, Bernice? Oh, that may be it.
Actually.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so there's a few comments down the side I think I need to address.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I made some notes. So
oh, brilliant. I'll let you speak, and
so and maybe Rodrigo can as well answer it when relevant. So so there was a lot of talk about not being able to use Zoom, for example, because the NHS doesn't use Zoom. So, and I know, and like I said in the chat as well, we also in the center tend to, so my team uses Zoom for practitioner to practitioner meetings such as this one, but we in general don't use Zoom for community services. So what are the alternatives? You've mentioned WhatsApp, obviously, and doing a Facebook Live, but like what kind of alternatives do we have? Are there any other platforms that are good as well, or any ways we can do video calls with groups and things like that? What's your advice, Sharifa, and maybe Rodrigo, if you have any advice as well?
Rodrigo, do you want to go first?
I can, yeah. Well, in regards to alternatives, that's difficult to say without knowing the specific situation. It's gonna be totally dependent into what exactly you want to do on those video calls. That's gonna define what you should or should not be using. The thing is, with all of these platforms are gonna have similar requirements from a user perspective. So if you have a user that's struggling with Zoom or whatever, they will have the same problem with most other platforms. So changing platform is not really the answer for those sort of situations most of the time. But yeah, without knowing the specific details, I would say just whatever it is that you use a platform that meets all the requirements that I said. Teams is a good alternative. Any business level solution should be okay, but it really depends on your specific situation.
I think something as well that's important to mention that I think a lot of people are not aware of is that even though you don't have MS Teams like an account, or it's not on your computer, you're able to use the web version anyway by clicking the link when you're invited. So you can just log in as a guest. And that's something that sometimes people don't really realize with MS Teams. So that's something you can use even though people don't have accounts or don't have it installed in their computer. So that's important to remember as well. Sharifa, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I do recommend that using Microsoft Teams is a better option, especially with the free version of Zoom. It can be quite could have security challenges, but I do find that using WhatsApp calls is something that's easy for a lot of people to use, and it may be the case of people not having data, which is something to also consider, because that will be the case of whether you're making a video call on any platform, WhatsApp or Microsoft Teams or Zoom. So it is a challenging one. I myself, we don't use Zoom with clients. We actually, if other organizations invite us, we ask them to set up the Zoom call or Microsoft Teams group, and we join the call there. When I do WhatsApp calls, I don't create a new group because I don't want to be sharing data between different clients. I would work with the existing group or do lots of one-to-ones. That takes a lot more time, but I find that it's more productive in doing one-to-ones with people, because it means that I get to the actual need of the person rather than having a group discussion.
That makes sense. And actually that leads us to the next question, which is about what do we do to help people who don't have smartphones or limited data? So how can we make sure they're not forgotten, and how can we help them in a...
I mean, that's going to be challenging always. I think the most important thing is to kind of keep communicating with people, even if it's a simple phone call. Having lots of online activities does exclude a group always, and I think it's whether we do it physically, doing workshops, or do it virtually, we always will exclude a group, and that's going to be always something that we have to bear in mind, of maybe having things that are through phone calls and doing some things that can be done on video calls, so we try and include as many people as possible.
There's a specific question about the Get Up to Speed program. So what is the client eligibility? Is there a criteria for like a geographical criteria? And is it run by Bromley by both?
Yes, so the Up to Speed project, we're partners with Quaker Association, which is based in Bethnal Green. It's actually funded by Good Things Foundation and Power Up project. And we have been commissioned to work with Tower Hamlets, Hackney, and also Newham. So we do have our own kind of area. But what I sometimes often do is just run kind of, workshops where I'm invited to come in and to speak about our project. So, it's not entirely close to the network as well. There's other projects in our team that you could consider. There's money management as well.
That one is probably one for Rodrigo, but do you have a link by any chance to some online safety protocols, like a good place to have a look through some safety tips and things? Is there anywhere where it's good to look?
I don't have a specific link or specific website where you can get all of that information. In our case, most of the times we try to use as many sources as possible, and official sources, things like the ICO website, and then build our own internal policies. But I can try and see if I can find any good website that has a good enough list.
Thank you, that's helpful. All right, I think now it's time to move on to the group activity. All right, welcome back. So, okay, so I know a lot of you have been just discussing and not really doing the task, which is totally fine. We're here to share some tips and experience and challenges. So maybe if anyone has anything they want to share to the whole group, Anything particular that you've been discussing with the person, or if you want to share about the role play, if you've done it and how it felt, feel free to let us know. Does anyone want to share? It's always the moment when no one dares speaking.
Okay, I dare to say it was really good, purely because I panicked. I couldn't find the link to the mock thing. I didn't know where to look, and all that kind of sense of, oh, I don't know what I'm doing comes. We were very, supportive group. We were led and found, and it was all fine. But it's interesting that if you give too many instructions, that's overwhelming, and if you don't give certain instructions, you feel lost. But that's coming from how I approach technology. So yeah, my feedback is it was all fine, but immediately my starting position wasn't too what's the word, competent. Yeah,
I think also I apologize because my own instructions were maybe a little bit patchy, so
no, it's fine. It's fine.
But I think it also teaches us that, it's the same as me giving you instructions or us giving instructions to clients. I think it's important to realize, what we actually, like you said, not giving too many information, not giving enough. It's a good question, actually. What is a good balance, and how can we make sure people are following?
Sorry, Shane. It's about us, actually. I was going to say that when we were doing the first exercise, Shane was looking at a computer to browse the Bombi Baba website, and I was using my phone. So obviously, what I'm seeing and what Shane has seen are kind of laid out very differently. So I think it's definitely important to think about the platform that your client is using. So if Shane's using the website, I should have been looking at a website. And ideally, I would have had I not been on Zoom right now.
That's
I think the other issue is that this medium is not easy for anyone. So trying to communicate, it's learning a new medium. It's learning a new language, and it's difficult. We would have had no trouble in a small group together to run a little role play, but doing it online is hard. And then relating to others online is hard. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that at the beginning of an interaction and then move on, so that people don't feel that they're not coping with the medium, or understanding the limitations of the medium.
Absolutely, that's great.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, it's so much easier when you're next to someone at their computer and showing them how to do things. And it's a lot more difficult right here. And I think there are some ways as well. We're running social prescribing link worker training as well. And we've been discussing things like, people not being able to join their breakout rooms or struggling with things with Zoom as well. So actually, one thing that we came up with and that we're going to start doing, we just figured it out last week actually, but we took some screenshot of our own screen and kind of putting some indication straight away on where you should click and this kind of things to join your breakout room. And now we're going to have that as a slide as well. So I think sometimes having something very visual, sometimes it's difficult to say click on the 3 little dots or the square on the top of the screen, but maybe it's on the top of your screen but it's at the bottom of their screen. So I think sometimes just having some visuals as well would help, and people really need to see, and that's something that's not easy all the time. Does anyone else have any little tips like that or something they've come up with to make it easier?
Yeah, we were talking in our group. We, apart from how to help client, our own struggle and challenges what we face when, let alone organizing, even for using. If even all the platform has a different format in different. Like if I just talk about the Zoom, if it is coming via my Outlook calendar, different format than using Eventbrite, and then using phone, or getting the password and using laptop. So different format has even a different steps to follow. So if you planning for, like, if it is very specific, like, okay, for Zoom users, for phone follow these steps, and for Eventbrite, or I don't know how many aspects are there. So that's what me and Jean was discussing, that the anxiety builds up. Now slowly we are getting up, and people are understanding that, okay, the person is not running late, maybe he's struggling how to get in, and what is involved, how to, all those small steps.
Yeah.
So we were doing our role play and pretending the client. So we came up with the solution that, okay, it's best to write all the steps beforehand and then guide. So it will be a practice, and then we can guide as well. And maybe if I forget it, something Jane can include in it. Yeah, that's we found that if there's clear instruction, if for phone user or laptop user or different format user, that can be really helpful.
I found it easy with your instructions because I'd struggled myself, and as soon as she started to mention the numbers, I realized what I could do. And her instructions from that point, when she gave me something that I understood, was straightforward. It went straight forward, but that's because I've struggled myself. But then again, you can have a link on an email, and you won't necessarily use those numbers. So yeah, dependent, exactly like you said, it's depending on where it comes from. And I thought that was a good solution that you come up with, is to write down the events, because although I've done it myself, I struggle to get in, and then you're so anxious trying to get in that you've forgotten what you were doing anyway. How did I get in? I don't know.
Can I just make another point? In terms of setting up your talk with someone, you really need to frame yourself in the frame. So I can see the top of your head and not the bottom, and it's really important that you frame yourself, because sometimes that's better, because sometimes it's you get waylaid with thinking, why can I only see that person's eyes, or I can just see their head, or so framing yourself, making sure your computer's set up, there's enough light, and that people feel comfortable talking to you is half the battle. So yeah.
Can I just, what you just mentioned, Sharifa, about being on different things because you didn't do it on the website. Do you minimize your Zoom meeting screen so then you can open a Chrome, another website? Because that's what I
absolutely. I just wanted to see my colleagues in the group at the same time, and I just thought, my phone is literally here, let me quickly have a look. Not realizing that registering for a event would be quite a bit down on the website, but absolutely minimizing.
Great, that's really interesting. So some interesting insights. Does anyone want to add anything before we kind of conclude, because we're getting to the end of our time?
The quick one, I just want to mention that maybe can be two part of this: a user's challenge and organizer's challenge. We are in the first step, and we want to become a organizer. Also, we want to organize workshop, conduct things, but it's still struggling as a user. So you can see how many steps we have to take.
That's true, but also, and that's something I was saying in a group that I joined. We also need to remember that we're all new to this, and it might be more difficult for some of us, but we need to also accept that there is going to be a problem when you are online, when you run an event, and it's okay. Have a backup, have someone there just in case. The last webinar I ran, some of you may have been there, I don't know. My Wi-Fi just cut off at the end, but Ellie was here, so she could just pick it up, and things went smoothly. So it's just about accepting that errors, mistakes are normal, and something might go wrong, but it's not the end of the world. So not stressing ourselves up too much and just go with the flow.